The EU's top diplomat will unveil a new action plan to promote women in the workplace and also prevent violence at home. It's to coincide with the International Day of the Elimination of Violence Against Women, and Joseph Borrell is trying to improve gender equality and women empowerment across the bloc. Figures show that violence against women and children has increased since lockdown measures started earlier this year. Many say they're victims of physical or sexual assault. Let's get more from our correspondent in Brussels, Shona Murray. Shona, very good to talk to you. Just tell us, from the EU's perspective, what's this day about? What's going on?
Well, the 25th of November is always the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, and it follows then 16 days of activism on that subject. But this year is very specific because of the exponential rise in domestic violence against women, around 30% in most places, according to the United Nations. In fact, the UN has called this year the domestic violence the shadow pandemic because of the rise of domestic violence. And of course, it's because of the tensions and the stresses of the COVID pandemic, but also and mainly because, and it's mainly women, are locked up indoors with their abusers. So the EU this week, as part of the activism, is unveiling an action plan to support women who are in domestic violence situations, but also to promote a gender equality. And I caught up with Claire Fursan from the European Women's Lobby, and I asked her a little bit about the type of abuse that is taking place.
I've seen a rise mostly in domestic violence, so in inter-partner violence, as women were locked at home with perpetrators. So that's mostly the rise we have seen. But also we suspect, and we don't have the data yet, that the online violence against women and girls might have gone to rise in these past months as we all turn into digital spaces. This was already a very widespread phenomenon that is really worrying to us.
Shona, what are different countries across Europe actually doing to try and tackle domestic violence?
Well, the problem is they're not doing enough because most governments are obviously prioritising the level of rates of deaths, of hospitalisations and the spread of COVID itself. But we know that the levels are rising because the number of women who are calling various helplines, for example, who are leaving their homes in spite of the fact that they've been told to be locked inside. But as we heard there from Claire, it's hard to get the exact data because in these situations, a lot of women are too frightened to report. But what the EU is doing this week is obviously trying to get governments to stand in and protect women and also urge all member states to join the Istanbul Convention on Domestic Violence. There's a couple of member states that haven't done that. But we also heard from Claire about in France, for example, where women are turning to pharmacies and using code words to alert pharmacists that they're suffering abuse.
The response is not harmonized, I would say. It's really different from countries to countries. We have seen very good examples of, for example, in France, where they have put in place a system of the pharmacy being a point of contact for victims, which was a great example. So really, we are looking into this share of best practices, and under the auspices of the European Commission actually was a great facilitator for that.
So we heard there from Claire in this package, really, Rosie, that domestic violence is surging across the world and across Europe because of the pandemic. And this is really a year for activism like no other. Rosie?
Shona, thank you very much. Our correspondent there in Brussels.